How's it going, everyone? My name is Trev Barnes. Thank you very much for joining me for another video today. I thought it'd be fun maybe to just go over the guitars that I have, maybe talk about the history, why I like them. But before we begin, did you know that a large majority who watch these videos aren't actually subscribed? It would mean the world to me if after the video, if you ended up liking it, to hit subscribe, hit like, hit share, do whatever YouTube wants you to do. But let's get right into it. So this is the one that started it all. This started as a Squire Stratocaster. I don't know the year of it, and it's also kind of like one of those Abraham Lincoln axe things, because this is not the original neck or the pick guard or the pickup covers or the knobs, but this was my first guitar. I told my dad that I really wanted to start playing guitar, and he went out and bought me this. Right now, the wiring is completely out of whack, but for a beginner guitar, I always thought that these things sounded great. This neck is from All Parts. It's an all maple neck, and I absolutely love it, but it does have stage wear on it as well, because I did used to gig with this thing a lot, but I genuinely don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for this guitar. The next guitar to come around was this one that my dad bought me as well, but it is a Lion L138. Lion is to Washburn as Epiphone is to Gibson. I think they sold these in Walmart, but it is signed by Mike Kennedy of the All American Rejects. This was just another guitar that I played around the house. I've never actually played with this live, but I gotta keep it. It's, again, my second guitar that I've ever got, and it's signed by a pretty cool dude. I think he's cool. I've never met him, but I was a big All American Rejects fan at the time. The pickup pattern is kind of set up like a Telecaster, and it does sound like a Telecaster as well. This one just kind of sits on the rack. I don't really play it. As you can see, the signature is kind of faded, and that's from me not really playing it that much, so I don't want to fade it anymore. Aside from the Stratocaster, this next guitar is probably the one that means the most to me. This is either a 2006 or a 2007 Epiphone Les Paul Standard. So as I was getting more serious with guitar, one of my favorite bands became Led Zeppelin. Obviously, seeing Jimmy Page play one, I wanted a Les Paul. So as a 9 or 10-year-old kid, I decided that I was gonna mow lawns and save up as much money as I can. I charged about $20 per lawn that I mowed, and this guitar was about $400, so that's a lot of lawns. But I still play and record with this thing to this day. I have played with it live a lot. This is what is known as kind of like a workhorse guitar. You can take it anywhere, you could do anything with it, you could beat it up, and it still sounds amazing. I find that the more worn in that this guitar gets, the better it sounds. But everything is original on it. I feel like companies like Epiphone get a bad rep for being like the cheap version of things. But if I did a blind test and played this in a Gibson Les Paul, I guarantee you that most of you would not be able to tell the difference. It's just true. It's a great guitar. So the next one on the list is this 2007 Gibson SG Faded. There were two players who played SGs that I absolutely loved. That was Robbie Krieger from The Doors and of course Angus Young from AC/DC. Seeing them play an SG really made me want one. During one of my last shows, it fell and the nut cracked, but I haven't got it fixed yet. But it's seriously a great guitar. It's very lightweight, it's super punchy, it cuts through in the mids super well. So a lot of times when I record rhythm guitar, I tend to go for this one. I did change the knobs as well as the pick guard. That was originally black, and I thought it would look cool with a cream pick guard. But as you can see, there's a lot of pick wear on this one as well. A lot of buckle rash on the back as well. So as I'm listening to more classic rock, I discover my favorite band, the Beatles. I really liked the way that John Lennon's natural Epiphone Casino looked, so I bought this Epiphone 335 dot because, well, I couldn't afford much. I was like 12 years old. This is another guitar that I mainly use for rhythm. There's something about the midtones on this one that just cuts super well through a mix. The only things that I really did with it, I took the pick guard off because I thought it looked better without it, and I replaced the knobs. It has this sticker on the back that says the Mad Hueys. I don't know who that is, so if that's your band, hey, here's the shout out. But I had a lot of challenges when I was playing guitar with this one. It was the first guitar that I got that the action was set up like super high on it, and I didn't really know what that meant or how to fix it. So for a long time, this thing was just really hard to play. In my opinion, this guitar made me a better player because it kind of forced me to make a guitar that was hard to play sound good. But now it's set up properly and it sounds great, it feels great, and it looks great. Another band that I was heavily influenced by was Green Day. I absolutely loved Billy Joe's black Gibson Les Paul Jr. My family was visiting my grandfather in Cape May, New Jersey, and we stumbled upon this music shop, and that's where I found this. I don't know the model name, but I know that it's a Samick. These are kind of known for being cheaper, lower end budget guitars, but this one was different. It played like way too well to be a budget guitar, and it sounded way too good. It also has a longer scale neck. I believe it's 25 inches. Us men tend to lie about measurements, so I could be wrong on that one. But yeah, I saw this thing and I was like, holy shit, it's a black Les Paul Jr. lookalike, and it sounds and plays great. I have to have it. The same day I bought this Cape May, New Jersey sticker and I had to slap it on there as well. But this thing honestly just feels solid. It doesn't feel or sound like a cheap guitar. And playing it live, it just feels powerful. Obviously there's only one humbucker pickup and one volume knob, but you just feel like a rock star playing it. That was cringy. I hated saying that. I have no idea what this guitar is. This is what my setup looks like exposed. In the 60s, there were a bunch of these Japanese guitars that just were made and they ended up all over the place. And this is one of them. My grandma found it at a garage sale and she was like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." I'm not gonna say no to a guitar. So she picked it up for me. But yeah, I don't really know much about this thing. It smells vintage. I haven't played this one too much because honestly the wiring is mostly shot. The neck is completely just out of whack, but it's a funky guitar. I have recorded with it before. It doesn't sound great, but it's just fun for what it is. It has these two selectors which just turn the pickups on and off. It also has this selector which turns the pickups on and off, but it's a pretty cool guitar. This guitar changed for me everything that I knew about being a guitar player. This was my first like not cheap guitar that I've ever owned. It's a 74 Telecaster Deluxe reissue, but more importantly, it's Chris Shifflett's signature guitar. And if you know me, you know that I love the Foo Fighters more than like anything. The Beatles and the Foo Fighters, they're both up there. But when I had this in my hands, I played the guitar like no other guitar I've ever played. I don't know how to describe it, but this guitar just made me better. I fell in love with playing music because of this thing. It's heavy, it's beautiful, and it sounds amazing. This was like my main guitar forever. The pickguard used to be like pearl white, and just because of how much I've been in the sun playing it on the road, sweat, dirt, grime, whatever, like this cool aged yellow now. But honestly, this thing does it all. It sounds good for lead, it sounds good for rhythm, it sounds good for clean, it sounds good distorted. There's nothing that this guitar can't do. This was the next guitar to come into my possession. This is a 60s Harmony Stratotone, which if you're familiar with the Black Keys, Dan Auerbach raves about these. Unfortunately, the wiring is no longer good and it has to be redone, and I haven't got to it yet, but I love having this in my collection. This is a 100% hollow body guitar, and when this thing's pickups used to work, it sounded amazing. There's just nothing that I had that really sounded like it. I can't describe it unless you've actually played or heard one. Listen to I Got Mine by the Black Keys. I believe that was recorded with a Stratotone. This thing was played so much that, as you can see, the black paint has completely worn off. But it's just another guitar that fits into the funky vintage weird collection that I have. Here's another one of my personal favorites. This is a Gibson Firebird 70s tribute. I think they made these in the early 2010s. They did this, an SG, and a Les Paul. And at the time they weren't expensive, but they were amazing and they went fast. It features a satin finish, so it was really easy to kind of just scuff up. But honestly, it made it so much cooler. Firebirds are so unique that when I would play this on stage, it was another guitar that I just felt like an arrogant rock star. Firebirds can be uncomfortable to play at first. They don't fit on guitar stands. They tend to have weight balancing problems where the head, if you just let go of the neck, tends to dip. They also can be a little awkward to play, but when you get used to it, you look really cool playing one. I believe everything on this is original. It has these mini humbucker pickups, which is kind of the in-between of a humbucker and a single coil. They make for a great rhythm guitar and they cut through amazingly for lead. And this guitar has definitely been through it. Now, I have always played a guitar before I've purchased it, and I've always bought it strictly because of how it sounds and how it feels. I've never bought something because of the name on the headstock or the price tag or anything like that. It's always been about what the guitar is, except for this one. I walked into my local music shop in La Plata, Maryland called Island Music, but I walked in there and I saw this guitar and I said, I want it. I didn't even play it. I picked it up and I bought it. I thought this guitar was so ridiculous because of this bright, annoying ass gold flake. I mean, even in the inlay work, there's gold flake in there. Thankfully, when I got home and played it, it sounded good too. It sounds like a very modern Telecaster. It is a little thin. I will replace the pickups one day with something a little beefier. But I mean, how cool is it? It's gold.
I love gold.
It has this really unique black binding as well. But I remember the night I got this, I told our light guy, hey, shine a spotlight on this thing. I want to blind everybody. And he did, and it was hilarious. This next guitar was given to me after I moved from Maryland by an amazing man named Danny Fisher. I appreciate him so much. I played in a band with him, and he gave this to me before I moved. It's made by a custom luthier who calls his guitars Haywire, but playing this thing, it's a mixture between a Strat and a Les Paul. It's very small bodied, it's very punchy. This is probably one of the best sounding guitars that I have. It's also extremely thin and has some of the most beautiful neck work that I've ever seen. It's got simple controls, just a volume and a tone, a 3-way selector, and 2 gorgeous pickups. The guitar actually isn't short scale, it's just that the neck goes so far into the body that playing it feels like a short scale. I've recorded a lot with this guitar, mainly because I was too scared to take it out on the road and ruin it. But I love this thing near and dear to my heart. So the last electric that I'm gonna show you is this Fender Jaguar. Definitely a Fender, and it's not counterfeited from China. I didn't order it off of Alibaba. I mean, come on, that doesn't look like a Fender. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to see if ordering something from Alibaba actually works or if it's just all bullshit. And sure enough, 3 months later, I got this. Pretty much all of these switches don't do a thing. The only one that actually works is this one right here. That switches between the pickups. You have the cool options of doing the bridge, the neck, and if you put it in the middle, none of the pickups work. I have tried every variation of all these switches and none of them do anything. I actually record a good bit with this guitar. I put heavier strings on this and I actually turned it into a baritone guitar. It doesn't play the best, but I love having it in my collection because I don't have a baritone, and there's a good story behind this one. It was seized by the government. I have tried putting this in my live rig when I used to play live music. The problem is that the pickups are so low output that you have to have a separate pedal just to boost that signal. And the pickups are cheap, so when you boost the signal, you get so much feedback. This one just stays at home. I just record with it. And the last guitar that I bought is this Eastwood Warren Ellis 6. Shortly before I actually ended up retiring from live music, I got sponsored by Eastwood and I got this amazing guitar. This turned to be one of my favorite stage guitars that I've ever played. Don't get me wrong, it sounds great recorded as well, but this thing was one of the easiest guitars I've ever played in my life. It is a short scale, so I feel like a giant playing it, but it also feels right. If you haven't played them, I strongly recommend trying them out. They feel vintage. And I don't know how else to describe that unless you've actually played vintage and new guitars and got to compare the two, but they feel truly vintage. But this guitar is kind of like a Fender Mustang. It has these 2 pickup selectors here, which is turn on and off the pickups. It has a mini humbucker, and I don't know what this single coil pickup is, but they sound amazing. I've said that about all my guitars. I need to find a different word other than amazing. It desperately needs new strings, but I still love playing and recording with it. So let's talk about acoustics. My buddy Alden, he had a Seagull and I played one and I was like, this is one of the most beautiful guitars I've ever played. They're a Canadian company. I'm surprised more people don't play them because they really are affordable and they sound amazing. It's made with Sitka spruce. It's super lightweight. I'm not a big fan of the pickup. It honestly does not do this guitar justice at all. So I love recording with it. A lot of guitars, like if you hear a Martin, you know it's a Martin. If you hear a Gibson, you know it's a Gibson. This thing is super versatile. It just sounds like itself. It's a very warm and homey guitar. But I've had it for a long while. It's beautiful. It's super easy to play. And I like it, okay? This next guitar, I traded an Xbox and like 50 games for this one. It's my first 12 string made by MXA, which is a Korean company. I've tried to do research on it and I know nothing about them. It's a pain in the ass to play. I'm missing a tuner. I don't know where it went or what happened to it, but I love it. It's my first 12 string and honestly, it did sound good at one point. The action is insanely high, so it's pretty hard to play, but it's pretty to look at, right? No, I do really like this guitar. I honestly should put some work into it, fixing it back up, because I could use more 12 string in some of my songs. This guitar has probably seen better days. It's a Martin DCP A5K, which is honestly one of my favorite acoustic guitars that I own. It's been a long time since I played this one, and as you can see, there's a lot of wear and gross stuff about it. But pretty much all of my acoustic shows were played with this one. I mean, I played a lot of shows with this thing. I've probably played more shows with this guitar than anything else. But it's super reliable. It has one of the best pickups I've ever heard in my life. The controls are also super seamless. You just have a tuner, a volume, and a tone knob. That's it. It also sounds amazing recording it as well. It just has that traditional Martin tone. But I love this thing. It's lightweight. The neck feels good. The action was low when I got it. It needed like no setting up. It also has this back, which I believe is called HPL. well. I'm probably gonna butcher explaining this, but it's kind of like a composite wood. So when it gets hot or when it gets cold, the guitar shouldn't change. This guitar right here is my absolute favorite acoustic guitar. It's a Martin GPX1AE. I did a video demo of this guitar and it actually got me over 10,000 views. That was my first video to hit over 10,000. The pickup in this doesn't sound as good as the other Martin that I have. It's kind of like a triple O, but the body is as wide as like a dreadnought. This guitar has a lot of mid-range, it has a lot of boom, but it sounds amazing and it plays great. This one's called Willa Jean. I named it after my grandma, and I don't really name my guitars. I don't know anything about this guitar. It says Rex on the headstock, but when I looked up Rex as a company, I couldn't really find anything. I know that it was made in either the 30s or the 40s, at least that's what the person at the antique store said. It doesn't sound great. It sounds like a very cheap guitar, but I do use this from time to time in recordings just to get a cheap guitar sound. Wow, doesn't that sound great? There's not really much history that I have with this guitar. I just saw it and thought it was cool. Played it, I liked the way it sounded. I was like, I could probably use this for a couple recordings. So I took it home with me. This guitar is a K. It's modeled after a Martin D18. There was a lot of work that went into bringing this one to life. It was found in my grandma's attic and it was just destroyed. It has a new bridge, it has a new neck to it, which I didn't want there to be a new neck because it was really cool. There was a lot of fret wear into it and you could actually see the digging into the neck. But I'm very grateful because there was a lot that went into getting this thing back to life. It's extremely hard to play because as you can see, the action is still incredibly high. Very hard to keep in tune, but it's a fun guitar to record once in a while. This guitar comes with a hat. I look like one of those girls who's ready for fall. This is a Danville Dobro, and a lot of people who have seen this in person thought, how the hell do you play that? The strings are so high. I remember walking into my basement, my buddy Alden was trying to play it and he was holding down the strings. I was like, no! But this is a Dobro. It is a traditional Dobro, so it's played like a lap steel. The strings are raised because it's supposed to be played with the slide. As you can see, there's a resonator on it, but this guitar is meant for bluegrass. There's a short period where I was playing with a lot of old timers at a farmer's market. I would just go up there every Sunday, play the Dobro, have a good time. I'm not a country person, but sometimes it's fun. But basically, you take a slide like this, you lay it across the lap, yeehaw, partner. My family's from West Virginia and they absolutely love bluegrass music, so when they found out that I was playing this, they were super excited. Let's talk about bass, baby. Let's talk about you and me. This is what's called the Hofner B bass. It's a Hofner 401 basically, but it's kind of the budget-friendly version. I desperately need to get this thing fixed because the sound of a Hofner is amazing. You can pretty much tell on a record when a Hofner is being used, but obviously I got this because I'm a giant Beatles fan. It's super small, it's super lightweight, it's easy to play, and it just sounds like no other bass I've ever owned. I haven't owned that many basses now that I think about it, but it definitely stays true to the higher end and traditional Hofner 401 bass. If you're looking for a Hofner type bass, I definitely recommend getting the real thing. I know Epiphone makes a version of it, but there's a couple problems I have with that. The Epiphone version's headstock is so freaking huge and it's very, very off weight. Everything about this bass is balanced extremely well. The Epiphone's version also doesn't really offer the tonality that this one does. I recommend if you're in a music store and both are available, try them both out. You're probably gonna love the Hofner more. My last bass that I own is this Squier Jaguar bass. This is probably one of the most versatile basses that's on the market right now. It's also short scale, so it's a lot easier to play. And one of the cool things about this one in particular is it has 4 knobs, but it looks like 2. But each knob is for each pickup, and the separation is that one's a tone and one's a volume. So you can blend so many tones with this bass alone. There's a couple other Squier basses that do this, but I just happen to like this one the most. It makes for an extremely versatile recording and live bass. And a lot of people can attest to it as well. The Squiers aren't that different from the Fenders. Especially nowadays, you're just paying for the name on the headstock. If some asshole is gonna point out the difference, who cares? You have an instrument, you're making noise. That's a beautiful thing.
Let me tell you something about music. It's beautiful.
Thank you guys so much for checking out my guitar tour. I hope it wasn't boring. I hope it was interesting. I love seeing other people's collections and knowing the story behind them, so I figured, hey, some of you might like it. I also want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for 500 subscribers, but I feel like the people who subscribe to my videos are genuinely interested in what I'm doing because a lot of people are commenting, really nice stuff. And I appreciate it so much. The main reason that I like to make videos is just because I like making videos. I don't have a YouTube goal. There's no like end game to this. I'm not trying to make money in the future from this content. But seriously, thank you guys so much again for watching this video. If there's anything that you want to see me attempt, do, whatever, shave my head, let me know in the comments. But I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. And most importantly, I will see you in the next video. Peace.